Hello and welcome to another episode of Stand Your Ground Studio. This is Scott, and today I want to talk about Zika virus. And you've probably all heard about this already. I know it exploded on my news feed about 2 weeks ago, and supposedly it started as a problem, or is known as a problem, as early as last spring, and then by the time they reported it to us this past January, and I'm sure it showed up in the news here and there, but they really wanted us to know about it starting a couple of weeks ago, all at once, so that by the time they started reporting it, they're all yelling at each other, all these different organizations, and they're telling each other they've waited too long, and now we've got an epidemic or even a pandemic on our hands. And right off the bat, you can tell that's probably a tool being used by the elite. It's a little too direct and a little too obvious. So that's why on Vatican Radio here, I'm putting up this image. You can kind of tell who's supposed to be behind it or what influence is behind it. And so apparently how it works, just the basics, I'm sure you've read up on it, is that it's a virus that is spread largely by mosquitoes. It's spread largely in the Americas. The virus itself has very mild symptoms, headache, nausea, that sort of thing. The real danger of it, though, is that only 1 in 5 people actually show symptoms of it, and that it's supposedly closely connected to the sharp rise of microcephaly, which is a case where a baby is born with a particularly small brain, and it just sounds like a horrifying ordeal for anyone who goes through it. Like I said, all at once, it's just this worldwide problem. So we've got this situation that sounds like we have where they're creating problems without borders so that we get solutions without borders, if you know what I'm talking about. So just today, we have our first reported case of the Zika virus being passed on through sexual contact. So now it can be spread from person to person. And remember, 4 out of 5 people who have it aren't showing symptoms. So we have that in the mix. And it's, of course, a very personal topic. And it was only really a matter of time before what I really wanted to talk about came up, and that was this right here, popped up in my feed, A Crisis of Faith, Zika virus tests Catholic position on birth control. All right, well, let's talk about that. You can go ahead and check out this article for yourself. It's pretty long, and it goes over several points that they need to make and all the different viewpoints people have about those topics. But why I wanted to talk about how is they're implying that it's all about the Christian faith when really they're 100% wrapping this up as the Catholic Church has to decide what's going to happen. So all eyes are on the hierarchy of the Catholic Church. What I really want to talk about how, different views on Catholicism and birth control, they make a couple of big points that directly contradict one another and allude to where this is going. So here's my first one. The Catholic Catechism states that besides natural family planning, anything else that works to render procreation impossible is intrinsically evil. The Reverend Father Frank Pavoni, I think you pronounce it, National Director of Priests for Life, said that means of birth control is wrong no matter what. Now listen to this. That prohibition doesn't change based on circumstances, he said, so couples have a responsibility to live according to the Church's teachings in whatever circumstances they find themselves. Okay, so right off the bat, it sounds like he's saying, we have to follow the faith no matter what circumstances come up. But he turns right around and says we have to live according to the Church's teachings in whatever circumstances they find themselves. So whether or not he knows it, that's doublespeak, because let's go right down to the bottom here. And again, you can read all about how they just did the synod where they're going to be issuing some changes to Catholic doctrine. But they go on to say, I think the situation with Zika might cause the Vatican to add a couple of caveats to whatever document is coming out of the synod, Ramirez said. And there will be some leeway in the Francisco era for a more nuanced approach to the contraception question. He said he thinks the approach will consider the unprecedented situation that Zika presents. So right off the bat, they're pointing everyone towards it's what the Church says, it's what a building says, it's what a hierarchy of people say. That circumstance doesn't change unless, of course, they go ahead and change it themselves. So I don't think they're going to come right out and make all kinds of huge changes like we've predicted in the past. I think what they're going to do is make a bigger and bigger issue out of it so that people on either side of it dig in on their respective side, because that's what these issues are about. It's not about resolving the issue, it's about getting people to dig in as much as possible. And as time goes on, defending the Word of God is going to become extremely difficult because the ante is going to go up and up and up, and it's going to look more and more and more like if you defend the Word of God, you're going to look like not just intolerant, but absolutely hateful. You're going to look like someone who is evil, and someone who the world is going to not just dislike but intensely hate. So I think this is one of many ways that there's going to be a great falling away from the church. And it's also another reason why a lot of doomsday predictions in the truth community has failed up to this point, because we sometimes forget it's not about collapsing the economy, it's not about World War III, it's about getting everyone to detach from their faith and from the word to a point where they're not coming back. And you can already see the division happening. I just brought up one, just looking through comments, and how it's becoming more and more of like a drop the microphone type of argument from everybody. Like, well, let's see what the church does now. Let's see how hypocritical they are. And it'll become seemingly impossible to defend, at least defend the word of God. But you have to realize, if you have the eyes and ears of what's going on, there's a larger agenda, and that it's pure evil. And one thing that was pointed out to me by Mike at On Point Preparedness is that this reeks of Agenda 21 population control, just like, this influence right here. So I just wanted to point this out. Be vigilant. The stakes are going to be getting higher and higher and higher, faster and faster. It's not going to happen all at once. The society needs to simmer in this acid bath that's being created, so that everybody who has less than the ideal faith is going to fall away. So I just wanted to say, despite all that, stay strong, stay vigilant, and remember to stand your ground in the days ahead, because no matter how bad this gets, it's really all deception, and anyone with a foundation of sand is just not going to make it. You have to have your house built on a foundation of stone. That's what I wanted to say. Keep your eyes open, be vigilant. Thank you for joining me, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks.